right, hello everyone. Yeah, I think everyone won't have a problem hearing me. First of all, has everyone tried the brownies? Because I am officially addicted. They're so good.
They're amazing.
So welcome to our Fireside Chat. I'm Andréa Waite. I work at Yelp in what we call our brand sales division. And I'm so delighted to be here with Laura and Bensal from PepsiCo.
Awesome, it's so great to be here. What incredible sessions. It was so inspiring hearing from the Carter's team and women in marketing before. It's an awesome event, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we're about to keep it moving too with some great conversation, and to that point, we want to kick it off a little more casual, I think, right? A little icebreaker, get to know you first personally before we dive into your wonderful career story. So we're going to do some rapid fire, just icebreaker type questions. And you guys are all going to be thinking to yourself what your answers are, right? So the first one is, what are you binge watching right now?
Oh gosh, okay, no judgment here, but I am binge watching 90 Day Fiancé. I am addicted to that show and anything true crime related.
I love it. The true crime, I think, is more of my alley, but then I'm like, why can't I fall asleep?
Yeah.
I'm having nightmares. And then the second one is, what is your favorite activity outside of the office?
So for me, I grew up as a dancer, so anything I can do to take a dance class, get at the ballet bar, and to do that after work is healing on so many levels. So I would say a mixture between dance and gardening. Getting my hands in the dirt and planting is something that brings me so much joy.
That's amazing. Is there any specific dance? Is there like more like ballet?
So mostly ballet and contemporary and lyrical.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. And I love that you're keeping up with that, because I know sometimes us marketers, it's winds up hard to keep those hobbies. And the gardening, that's my new thing right now too. Definitely getting into it, the spring flowers. And then what is your favorite Pepsi or PepsiCo product?
It's hard to pick, but I would say for sure Pepsi Zero Sugar. And when I need that cola kick, Pepsi Zero Sugar is my favorite. I drink about 6 bottles of Life Water daily, that's another one. And then when I really want to indulge, Doritos Cool Ranch is my go-to for salty snacks.
Yeah, those are some good ones. So Doritos Cool Ranch, I was just really, it's like, I was saying it's almost like having steak and potatoes on a diet.
It's
super
so
satisfying.
good.
So
It's
good,
so
right?
good.
So good. Okay, cool. Now let's get into your work history. So you and I, we got to know each other a little bit, which has been fantastic. And your career journey has been just really amazing. Like, I love how starting at Gray and then going into Sherwood. So can you bring us through that trajectory and kind of talk about?
Sure. So right out of college, I started the agency route, and I worked for Gray New York on the account side, covering our P&G accounts. And it was at the time Pantene, which was our largest hair care account that we had at Gray. And it was the perfect time to join because literally 6 months after my first day, we were going to launch our largest brand restage in the history of Procter & Gamble. So I don't know if everybody remembers, but rewind back to around 2005, the hair care industry is very different from what it is today. At the time, it was problem versus solution. So if you were to go into the grocery store, it was, I have frizzy dry hair, I have color damaged hair. It was more of a negative connotation versus connecting with people in an authentic and empowering way. So P&G took that step back and reevaluated and said, we have an opportunity here to more meaningfully connect with our consumers. So they did that. They did about 2 years of insight and research to land on why they're not connecting. And it was really around the fact that it's just somewhat embarrassing to purchase hair care because you're going up and you're sharing what your problem is versus what the inspiration was. So to join at that time and start from conception to completion and really ground myself in how you identify a human truth and how do you flow that through to a broader advertising campaign was like marketing boot camp, so to say. I absolutely love that. So I was on Pantene for a few years. I got promoted onto the Febreze account. And then at that time, I kind of took that step back and wanted to evaluate where, what did I want to be when I grew up, right? Where did I want to go from here? And I made the decision that I wanted to make the segue from agency to the brand side. So how do I go about doing that? What are the means in which that I can unlock those doors and opportunity? And ironically, I met somebody on vacation during a salsa class on a cruise ship who happened to work in HR for Starwood Hotels at the time. And we started talking. I shared my experience, my journey, and Lo and behold, about 6 weeks after our vacation, I got an email from her that said, you might be interested in this opportunity, submit your resume. And that's how I made the jump from agency to Starwood Hotels. And I was there in their digital marketing and local marketing team for almost 9 years. And what my role was taking the global and national brand identity across St. Regis, W, Weston, Sheraton, and then how do we distill that down to a market level strategy. So if you think about if you're going on a vacation to Paris, you care less about the brand per se, you care more about the destination. And from there you identify where you want to stay. My team's responsibility was how do we get people to think about, well, what is a W experience in Paris? What is a St. Regis experience in Paris? So I was part of that team for 9 years. And then at the time, Starwood had been acquired by Marriott, and I worked for Marriott for about 1.5 years. And it came to the point where I had to make a personal choice and a life choice of uproot my home, my family, and either move to DC or stay and potentially find something else. And that's where PepsiCo came in. And it was very serendipitous. And I joined the team back in 2017. And it was a very similar role in the sense where I worked at the division level and I managed our sports and entertainment assets in a given market, and I had to bring those to life from a brand perspective. So I worked with our teams like the New York Yankees, the Jets, the Giants, and what we did was we came up with local programming that laddered up to our national strategy. From there, I then went to a new business task force where it was a group of marketers and sales team that came together to solicit new business. So we went after our national and global accounts to basically pull together a marketing capability plan to get them to come over and make the switch to PepsiCo. So I worked on the Dunkin' pitch, which was amazing. That was a huge win for our system. Carnival Cruises. And then after that, I rotated into what is my now current role, where I lead our global lodging, marketing, and global restaurants. And Papa John's is one of the partners that I have the privilege of working with.
Awesome. As you guys can see why I was so impressed and inspired by this journey. It's so fantastic. And we share the P&G agency
Yes, we do.
Experience, so we were definitely talking about that a lot. So you can see the global to the local, right? Mm-hmm. And that's really, I think, the red thread also throughout your career, which is super interesting. And how you, even in the role now, is really about taking the human truth, the human insight, and bringing it down to that local level.
Yeah, and it's not easy, right? I mean, sometimes when you are given national or global brand plans and you're charged with localize this or take these plans and bring them through to a partner, you almost go through that process of where do I begin and what do I do? So my team really has to develop that strategy process of how we get there. And I would say irregardless of what the work stream is, it's a very methodical process that we go through at PepsiCo to simplify. And it's always grounded in what is that human truth. I know we spoke before about the Pantene example, but there's many examples across the board, across our brands, across our partners' brands, and it's a very simple step, right? We always start out with what is the broader business problem to solve? Then the double click under that is what is the regional business problem to solve? Because sometimes it's nuanced with where our global brands need to go is going to be different, where the New York market might need to go, for example. And then from there, is there any facts that we can pull of why we know it's not working? But then where the magic happens in our campaign strategy is, okay, how do we distill this down to a human truth and an insight? And that's where we really develop our brief, craft our story, and from there, that's how we develop our campaigns.
Fantastic. Should we show some examples? Do you want to talk through it first?
Absolutely. So why don't we do this? So I have, depending on time, I have 3 creative examples that I can walk you through of how we got there. But let's start with a video of a sample of a recent work that we did with Papa John's for Doritos Cool Ranch Papadilla.
A lot of people have been asking me.
Why do you guys have been asking me? Why do you guys have been asking me? Why do you guys have been asking me?
This is my idea.
Papadilla was actually my idea.
This was our idea!
Doritos Cool Ranch Papadilla was my idea.
My idea. I invented that on a jet ski.
Who else would come up with such a genius idea?
Would I be getting the Papadilla tattooed on me for the rest of my life if I didn't invent it?
I thought you made that. This is my invention.
The Doritos Cool Ranch Papadilla was my idea, baby.
It seems like a lot of content creators are taking credit for my brilliant idea.
The proof is in the plate and it's in the flavor that it was my idea.
A lot of other people claiming credit for the Papa John's Doritos Cool Ranch Papadilla. Kris Jenner.
I did that. Yeah. Genius.
Oh, that's cute.
I love how you ended with him. He is my favorite. Can you talk more about how this cheese lighters is funny?
So what's really interesting about this project was, as you probably can all relate, everybody wants to go after Gen Z and Millennial right now. And that is, the latest consumer target that we really and understandably so want to go after. But what we found in our research is that it's not necessarily about who you choose as your influencer and who you choose as your talent, but the what you say and the how you say it is almost more important. So for us, we certainly wanted to do something that was traffic driving, buzzworthy, but we knew that we had to rethink how we leverage talent to be much more authentic and meaningful to connect. So rather than having our brands speak to talent and have them just parrot back a script as we've typically done, we flipped the script and we allowed the influencers and talent their own forum to speak to us and claim credit for it. And what we found was that almost sparked that natural viral engagement where people automatically, who are just your everyday consumer, they wanted to take credit for it. Or it just really created a lot of authentic cultural conversation that had we maybe approached it a little bit differently, I don't know if we necessarily would have seen it, as successful as we did.
Yeah, it's amazing. Do we want to show another one?
Well, so that was the only example that we had, but I can share.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I would say another example of how we got to the insight, the brief of where we landed is an example in the past year and a half of a work that we did with Subway. So, Subway footlong is something that is iconic, right? It's globally known that the footlong sub is true to Subway. And from a brand perspective, there was an opportunity for our partner to really refresh that. It was something that, was public, that sales had been on the decline for footlong. They were trying to reinvent and almost re-inject life into what footlong could be. What is the future of footlong? So as a partner of ours, we worked together to think through how can we almost rethink what a footlong is? And what we did is we partnered with our Lay's brand and we developed an actual footlong chip. And so the insight behind this is that it is very polarizing. You are either a chip in the sandwich person or you are a chip outside the sandwich person. So we knew that there was something that was there. And rather than boiling the ocean, we thought, let's go after the people that really love putting chips inside the sandwich and let's speak to those people. And what we found is that it was just a culture bomb and drop that we did. But the conversation that created around it had other people come in and join the conversation that basically said, this is a disgrace, how could you have chips in a sandwich, but made them want to go out and try it, which then asked, is it going to become a permanent menu item? So it's a great example of a culture bomb moment that then led to now permanent menu items. So Subway right now has footlong cookies, footlong pretzels, and footlong churros on their menu, and all of that came from a culture drop that was grounded in a human truth that chips in your sandwich is really polarizing.
Yeah, I just love how it's like the starting the conversation, and I love that word, the bomb, because you guys are just like you've done the research, right? So it's not just happening, it's not serendipitous. You guys are doing the research, you have this really great truth, and then you're throwing it out there, and it's running.
Yes.
It's taking on this whole life of its own. By this video, by the example you're sharing now, and getting on the menu, so that's really amazing.
Yeah, and it's so fun because I think the most important process of any creative that you put out in the world is the briefing process, and so often it's like 5 minutes of our time when it really should be probably the most in-depth amount of our time. And I think the most solid work has been we're truly able to delineate the fact between the insight. Like the fact is yeah, okay, that makes sense, but the insight is that, oh my gosh, we're onto something, this is an actual human truth. So I think for what we really try to strive to do in our team is spend as much time on the briefing process, and if we don't know, what do we need to do to uncover a human truth? There's always something that's there when there's a business problem to solve. You're always gonna, if you keep digging, you're gonna unlock a human truth behind
Yeah,
that
that's
that you
exactly-
can really lean into.
That's exactly what I'm hearing you speak, the whole saying like garbage in, garbage out, so it's like you don't have a great brief. But then the digging, like someone mentioned before, like I always ask why, and I'll ask them hard questions and ask why, like why do you think that? Because there is some gut involved, right? And it seems like there is a little bit that, like someone mentioned goosebumps, like you get the goosebumps, you get the gut. But I think what you're saying is like you're spending that time really pressure testing it to make sure that it is what it needs to be in order to have that magic, right?
Absolutely, and I always feel that an insight should almost borderline scare you because it puts you out of your comfort zone. It makes you realize, while it's not resonating with me, I'm not this consumer, but this is speaking to that consumer. It's a risk when it doesn't resonate with you personally to put yourself out there, put your brand out there, invest money and time into it, and believe in something. So absolutely.
Yeah, I was gonna say that that's a big insight in itself, what you just said, where it's like, we're talking about this marketing, inclusivity, and cultural marketing, and how often are we meant to be the consumer, are we meant to be the end user, so having to go through that exercise and having to be aware of that every step of the moment is huge.
Absolutely, and it's funny, I just recalled a conversation that I had with some of my senior leadership, and it was a campaign that we were so proud of and felt so strongly that it was gonna break the internet. And our leadership at the time said, "Ooh, I just don't, I don't see it, I'm not really vibing, I'm not really there yet." But in fairness to that person, they said, go back, do some more research, do some more digging, pressure test it, do what you need to do to come back and show me that there is a human truth here, and I'm not gonna say no to the idea. And we did the consumer work, we did the research, we found out that there was a really important nugget of human truth that was in there. And certainly we had to refine, we had to tweak based off of that, but it was the idea that initially didn't resonate with that individual, but when we actually did the research, it was ultimately approved at the end.
Uh-oh.
Can you guys hear me? Oh,
There
perfect.
is that, perfect. Yeah, again, I really love that, because we're, a lot of times with marketing, we're trying to talk to people that it's not us sometimes, right?
Sure.
Or again, you're trying to make a message, because you're trying to break, point of market entry, or again, Gen Z, super, super smart. Okay, so let's get into a little bit, what's on the horizon specifically in this vein of cultural marketing, bringing the global to the local, all the great things you're doing. What should we expect to see? Without giving away too much.
Yeah, I can't give it away all, but I will say that PepsiCo prides itself on really tapping into talent and influencers in a meaningful way. And just even last week, the Gatorade rebrand of Is It In You, we brought back that iconic classic of, Michael Jordan and that tagline, but we did it in a different way where it was connecting the next generation of athletes with who our icons are today. So I would say that definitely expect in the fall season, there's gonna be some refreshed creative that's coming out for some of our brands, which I'm so excited to see, but I would say you're just continue to expect to see us challenging how we approach and go to market with talent and influencers and always looking to evolve in that space.
Yeah, amazing. And then, do we want to get to the last one and we can have some questions? So this is an amazing group here. I know we've had lots of conversations and there's been a lot of advice and some really great words of wisdom. Do you have any to share specifically for this topic?
Sure, I think one maybe in the professional space and then one on the human side. I would say, going back to what we were even speaking about before is allow yourself the time if you need it, right? So often we get business problems, fire drills, drop everything, pivot and do this. And we have to, it's part of our job, but allow yourself the time to take that step back and be super strategic. Even if it takes an extra day, 2 days, do the consumer work, do the research, make sure that your brief is so concise and so tight that even if it's gonna be a fire drill, everybody in that room is gonna leave knowing that we're all marching in this direction. Here's our problem to solve, here's our fact, here's our insight, and the creative will flow from there. Just give yourself the time to do that, even when seemingly you don't have time to do that.
Yeah, and as a team lead, then how do you make sure that your team also, and I'm imagining they're the ones sometimes doing the research, they're the ones doing some of this work that you're like, this is what we need to do.
I think as a leader, the most important thing is the focus of priorities, because so often there's a million things that we need to do, but making sure as a leader that we are giving that clear path forward of helping empower the team to understand where we need to go, what are the business problems to solve, and helping them get there, helping them remove barriers if we need to, if it's quick, if we need to get cross-functional alignment. PepsiCo is a massive matrix, so there's a lot of people that need to approve every step along the way. So me as a leader, how do I help that go along as quickly as possible to remove whatever barriers?
Awesome. I'm sure they appreciate that. And anything else in terms of, I think you mentioned a personal one as well.
Yeah, it's been so amazing hearing from everyone and what it takes to be an amazing leader and marketer, and I've heard empathy, I've heard understanding. I think everybody's had so much to share, and it's been so wonderful listening. So I just echo that and say, absolutely. I think the one thing that I would just build on that is a little levity and a little laughter sometimes goes a long way. I want to be remembered as the leader that even if it's hair on fire and it's so frantic, that we've enjoyed our time, we're laughing, we're finding the humor in even the most insane of circumstances. How do we just connect as people and have a good time? Because at the end of the day, what we do is fun, and of course there's going to be mistakes, of course we're going to fail, all of that's going to happen, but let's just find the humor and the levity and just enjoy each other's company.
You are talking to the right person. I love that so much. I know we haven't known each other that long, but I can see that. Like, that's something that's really memorable already, just knowing you the short time, that, just smile and happy and, just really trying to make light of the situation, and I'm a big believer of that. Probably sometimes too much. When everyone's serious and I'm cracking a joke that doesn't land well, but at the same time I'm still like, come on guys, calm down. Like,
you gotta laugh sometimes, honestly.
This is a fun job, we're doing fun things, like let's not take it too seriously. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, awesome. Let's turn over to the audience. Any questions? Yeah. Should I give you the mic?
Sure.
Thank you, first off. With influencers and younger generations being so fickle and fast, you're obviously trying to find cultural moments before they happen. Can you talk about how PepsiCo scales that, like across an organization, knowing what's interesting before it's too late?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's so hard to do that, right? And it's how you time it at the right moment. It's such a great question. So I think a lot of what we do is social listening, whether that's consumer research, social listening, what is trending right now in the ingredient space, in the cultural space. One of the examples from Subway even was we did a custom pickle chip for them, and we went through all this ideation of how do we get there, and what we found from social listening, that pickleball was blowing up. Everybody and their aunt was playing pickleball, they were passionate about it, athletes were investing in it, so we thought, okay, this is really risky, it's super fast, and we don't even know enough about pickleball as a sport to go there, but let's just trust our gut and trust what the data is showing and pivot. So I think it's a mixture of real-time listening, but then also real-time being uncomfortable to make a choice and lean in on something that's not necessarily proven just yet and see if it works. So I think that's not necessarily, we don't play in that space all the time, that's just one example, but I think if you can time it well and you're willing to take a risk and you feel that it goes back to that insight, that human truth, go with it.
It seems like, not to overspeak, it seems like the culture of Pepsi kind of allows for that, right? Like, do you think that there is just some norms that you guys are working towards that give you a little bit more of that daring approach?
Absolutely. So we pride ourselves as being the challenger brand, right? Pepsi is a challenger brand, Mountain Dew, challenger brand, and what you really have to do to be a challenger brand is to also challenge pop culture, challenge the norm. You have to set that conversation and be at the forefront. That means you have to take risks and sometimes set what that conversation is going to be. So I would say as a culture, from the top all the way down, There's no such thing as a bad idea. There's no such thing as a crazy idea. You know, all ideas are welcome, and let's vet them and let's see if there's something that's there, and if there is, let's run with it.
That's amazing. Anyone else? Any other questions?
Hi, I love the example with the Doritos and the Papa John's. And when you did that, there were a lot of celebrity influencers there. How do you think about your strategy with influencers changing or staying the same when it comes to nano, micro, all the way up to celebrity?
So for us, what's interesting is what's consistent is the consumer profile. So even though there were 40 plus influencers that we worked with, we had a very strategic consumer profile that we needed to go after. And when we went through the process, it was eye-opening that some of the talent that we felt was right for it was completely wrong for it. And some of the talent that was right for it, you know, vice versa. You know, I laugh, there's some, for example, I didn't know that Bill Nye the Science Guy over-indexes with Gen Z, millennial, and Doritos. That was wildly eye-opening for me. I did not know that, right? So I had to take off my assumption hat and look at the data. So I would say that's consistent, whether it's a massive TVC campaign down to a one-off social post, as long as it's within that mapping of the sweet spot of who this talent resonates with, that's really where we play. I would say where we're kind of exploring and expanding is what other type of influencers? Is it gaming influencers? Is it, beauty influencers? There's so many different ways that we can approach our brands and go to market. I'd say that's where we're really starting to try and push ourselves to think about is who is a different type of talent that really breaks the norm that we've worked with historically, and how can we do something really cool together?
Thank you.
Anyone else? We do have a few minutes, so.
Thank you so much for saying that briefs are the most important thing, and bad briefs make bad work. So as a disgruntled creative director, I want to ask for any words of wisdom or advice for feedback that you would like to receive from creatives or agencies or partners on how to add depth to your briefs.
I would say be honest and be direct. I always ask my creative agency to tell me if I'm not making sense, because sometimes it's all up here and then getting it on paper and then actually vocalizing it in the formal briefing, I can sense that it's just not clear. So if you need more clarity, if you need a tighter brief, if it's not working for you, I think the more that you can actually just be direct in that, we would always welcome that. I've literally had account directors look at me and say, you're crazy, this is not gonna work, or it needs more work. And I think just the more honest that you can be about that, the better, because at the end of the day, we're all a team, right? And as good as my brief and direction is gonna be as great as the output of the creative work is. So I think that don't hold back, don't be afraid to hold back.
I try not to. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Is that it? Any more questions? Okay, well, this was fantastic. Thank you so much, and thank you so much, Papa John's. And now I'm not only addicted to your pizza, but the brownies. And thank you so much for Innovators.